Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this important series of hearings, and I'm very, very pleased to be here alongside with my distinguished colleagues and very dear friends, Secretaries Kissinger and Shultz. I want to commend this committee for initiating this timely discussion of U.S. national security strategy, because these hearings embody this chamber's best traditions of bipartisanship in foreign policy, and I think they can be tremendously helpful in framing the issues facing our country. As someone who began her career in public service working as chief legislative assistant to the great senator from Maine, Ed Muskie, I have long believed that Congress has a critical role to play in our national security. So when I became Secretary of State, I valued my regular appearances before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, then headed by Senator Jesse Helms. He and I did disagree on many things, but we respected each other and built an effective partnership we both believed because America had a unique role to play in the world. And that belief still shapes my worldview and informs the perspectives that I bring to our discussion today. It doesn't take a seasoned observer of international relations to point out that we are living through a time of monumental change across the world. We're reckoning with new forces that are pushing humanity down the path of progress while also unleashing new contradictions on the world scene. One of these forces is globalization, which has made the world more interconnected than ever before, but also added new layers of complexity to the challenges of statecraft. With globalization, it's impossible for any single nation to insulate itself from the world's problems or to act as the lone global problem solver. Another force is technology, which has unleashed unprecedented innovation and benefited people the world over, while also amplifying their frustrations and empowering networks of criminals and terrorists. Globalization and technology are reshaping and disrupting the international system, which is struggling to keep pace with change. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the Middle East, where century-old state boundaries are unraveling. A rising wave of violence and sectarianism is producing the world's largest refugee crisis in 70 years, and a dangerous competition is playing out between Iran and Saudi Arabia for regional primacy. Another key test lies in Europe, where Russia's ongoing aggression against Ukraine has fundamentally changed security calculations on the continent and marked the first time since World War II that European borders have been altered by force. Events of recent days have shown that what many have assumed would become a frozen conflict is still, in fact, red hot. Meanwhile, in Asia, the region's growth and the rise of new powers are creating new opportunities for the United States in areas such as trade, but these developments are also testing security arrangements that have ensured peace and stability since the end of World War II. None of these challenges pose an existential threat to the United States, but the intensity and complexity of them can seem daunting, particularly after we've been through more than 13 years of protracted war and threats such as climate change, nuclear proliferation, disease, and food and water shortages also looming on the horizon. Still, they can't be ignored. The American people may be tired, but we must avoid another danger lurking in this new era, the temptation to turn inward. Because for all the turmoil this young century has brought, America remains by far the world's mightiest economic and military power, with a resurgent economy and an energy revolution giving us newfound confidence in our future. We are the only nation with not just the capacity and will to lead, but also the ideals to do so in a direction that most of the world would prefer to go, towards liberty, justice, peace, and economic opportunity for all. As the President said last week, the question is not whether America should lead, but how it should lead, and that in many ways is the focus of today's hearing. So let me just suggest a few basic principles that might help guide this discussion. First, we are the world's indispensable nation, but nothing about the word indispensable requires us to act alone. Alliances and partnerships matter, enhancing our power and the legitimacy of our actions. Our national security strategy must always encompass the security of others, and where possible, we should work through coalitions of friends and allies. Second, given the fluid nature of today's threats, we must make wise use of every foreign policy option, from quiet diplomacy to military force, to protect America's national interests. Third, the foundation of American leadership must remain what it has been for generations, our belief in the fundamental dignity and importance of every human being. We should not be shy about promoting these values, and that's why I'm proud to be chairman of the National Democratic Institute, and I know you, Mr. Chairman, are very proud of your leadership of the International Republican Institute and the things that we do together. Working with allies and partners, balancing our diplomatic, economic, and military tools of national power, staying true to our ideals, these will all be critical in navigating today's challenges. And this means in the Middle East, we must continue working with European and regional allies to apply direct military pressure against the Islamic State, while making clear that these violent extremists are guilty not of Islamic terrorism, but of crimes that are profoundly un-Islamic. And we must aid the millions of innocent refugees in Syria and its neighbors that have fled both the terror of ISIS and the depravity of the Assad regime. Another challenge in the region remains Iran. The President has made it the policy of the United States to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. He has taken no options off the table to achieve that goal, and the administration is exploring a diplomatic resolution. If these negotiations fail, or if Iran does not honor its commitment, then the United States should, and I believe will, impose additional cuts on Tehran with strong support internationally. But I believe it would be a mistake to do so before the negotiations run their course. In Europe, we must reinforce our NATO allies and stand united and firm against Putin's aggression, even as we continue to engage Russia as a global power on issues of shared interest. But until Russia honors its commitments and withdraws its forces from Ukraine, there can be no sanctions relief. And if Russia continues its pattern of destabilizing actions, it must face even more severe consequences. On economic reforms, the administration has made strong pledges with Ukraine to work with our allies, however, to secure more commitments in the areas on banking and energy, but we do have to help them in terms of military assistance so that they can defend themselves. We should not make the road forward harder by suggesting that we see Ukraine's future subject to Russia's veto. I have many other comments, but I would like to reserve the rest to put in the record, and I thank you very, very much for your kindness in asking all of us to come and speak.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Secretary Shultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate